because the value that comes in the form of a medal or a trophy in 6 months is way more than the value of partying with your friends or your girlfriend or at movies. No greater pressure you can put on your child if you by comparing him to another. I remember sitting alone at lunch breaks, searching within to develop a work ethic to excel in a competition and allow him, to grow and allow him to find what he's passionate about more than what you feel he should be.
Shy boy Rehan chose swimming over dance. Little did the 7-year-old know at that moment that he is going to make the country proud. Giving up on parties and fun trips was not all that great. But with time, life was the best in the pool, bettering himself and connecting to the sport that he loved the most. Victory was addictive, and few failures only made him closer to success. Today, Rehan, though not shy and little, is an Olympian, an Arjuna Awardee, and a 6-time national champion. While bidding goodbye to the sport at 28, he had his plans clear. He went ahead to be the most admired coach, a TV sports presenter, a charming motivational speaker. And is getting trained to represent India in his newfound passion, golf. Let's have a look at the wonderful success story of Rehan Poncha.
Welcome to Success Story. And today, as all of you all requested, we are having a sports personality exclusively for you all. There are a lot of you all asking me for people from the sports fraternity to come and talk about how they manage, about exercise, how they remain mentally fit, how they manage time. So I have someone perfect today. A young boy who chose swimming over dance because he was very shy. And he grew up to love time management that he ended up buying lots of watches. So you really want to meet him today. I'm sure you all are waiting. So we have with us today Rehan Poncha, who is an Olympian, a wonderful personality who is motivating a lot of other youngsters. And he's an Arjuna Awardee. And he is not just a lover of swimming. Now he wants to represent India for golf as well. So let us welcome Rehan Poncha to Success Story. Welcome, Rehan.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm most humbled and honored to be part of your channel and your video. So thank you for that.
Okay, you're always welcome. Our intention is to motivate younger people, and you are just perfect because when I look at your profile, you actually motivate people too. So that's fantastic. So we want someone like you to interact with our youngsters, like they're really, really waiting to hear from someone like you. So as
Sure.
a start, I just want to know, as a little boy, like, why did you choose swimming over dance? Dance is something very creative and artistic expression. Another one is more of a strict diet, timing, and exercise. Not many 7-year-old would want to do that, right? So tell me, how?
So the honest truth is that as a very young kid, I used to get ill very frequently. So coughs, cold, bad bronchitis, high fever was something that I was fighting as a 5, 6, 7-year-old constantly. So to build up my immunity and for therapeutic reasons, our family doctor told my parents that they should get me swimming, because they felt that swimming as a sport would strengthen my lungs and it would also heal this condition of having basically weak lungs and a low bad immunity. And that's how I was taught. That's how I learned the sport. So I was a member at a club in Mumbai, and which had a swimming pool, luckily for us. So the teacher just taught me how to swim, and ever since I can remember, I've been an extremely competitive kid. I've always been competitive. I still am today. So it was only natural that I would choose swimming not just as a hobby, but as a competitive sport.
Mhm.
But like you said, at the age of 7, I was also pursuing dance. Now, not very seriously, because I was 7 years old. So it was more of a hobby. And I used to attend Shamak Davar dance classes in Bombay.
Mhm.
What my schedule would be was I would come back from school in the evenings and I would go to dance class on one day and I would go to swimming on the other. Up to a point where my dad asked me, he said, why don't you choose one? Because he felt that choosing one would lead to excellence rather than being good in both. So I said, I'm going to choose dance because honestly, as a 7-year-old, which 7-year-old wouldn't prefer the spotlight on stage or the warmth of a spotlight rather than freezing cold waters of a swimming pool? So I said I'm going to choose dance, and it just so happened that on that day was I went into dance class, and it was the first day of duet partner dance.
Okay.
So dance instructor said that all the boys in the class have to choose one girl who's going to be your partner for the next month. So now, like you mentioned in my introduction, I was an extremely shy boy. So, the thought of approaching a girl and talking to her and asking her to, be my partner in dance was so overwhelming and frightening that I quietly ran out of dance class.
Okay.
And luckily for me, my dad was still in the parking lot. So I went up to my dad and said, Dad, I've changed my mind. I want to swim. So, and this is, it sounds funny, but it is absolutely the honest truth that my fear of approaching another person at that age, because I was so shy and my level of self-confidence was so low, that I decided not to pursue dance and I decided to pursue swimming, even though I enjoyed dance more. So at that point, and I didn't really love swimming when I started it, because like I said, it's extremely cold water for a weak 7-year-old child. It's very hard to swim. And but I chose the harder of the two because of my fear. So and that's how I started spending more time at a swimming pool. And like I said, because I was so competitive, it became only natural that I would start wanting to be better at it, and then start entering for swimming championships at the ages of 7.5 and 8 and 9. And then, like you say, the rest is honestly history.
Okay. So when it comes to your schooling, how much pressure, like normal Indian parents, did they give you towards studies? Did they let you prioritize on your interest, or was it more like, let me check your grades first? How was it?
So I'll tell you there was always a very good balance when it came to from my parents when it came to sport and academics. So there was one rule that stood in my house, and it wasn't even at a school age, but even in college, where my dad said that if your grades are falling, or if you're going to start failing, or you're going to have complaints from your teachers at any age, as I went through school and then college, I will not allow you to go to swimming practice. So this is uh, this is how strict they were in terms of being good at academics. But when I use the word balance, I meant that there was never really pressure to perform with coming back with 90s and 95% and that level of scoring. They just wanted me to be disciplined at my academics and score well and show that I had discipline in studies as well. So it was more like, if you are good at academics and you show your discipline there, you earn the right to go to practice and play your sport. But there was always a balance where there was no pressure to say you have to finish at the top of your class in studies, otherwise we won't let you swim. It was never that, because they understood that I was a hardworking, disciplined kid, and I had potential and I had talent in sport. And I'm talking about 1996 and 97, where it was unheard of to make swimming a career in terms of monetizing it as a career. But they still allowed me to pursue my goal or pursue my sport, and were always supportive. So I was very lucky to have that in my family, where they were very, very dedicated to my goals and my dreams. And I mentioned to you earlier that up to a dedication up to a point of switching states to go from Maharashtra to Karnataka at the age of 13, just to give me the opportunity of having the best coaches train me in the country. So that is the commitment to which my parents pursued my sport along with me, to give me the best opportunity in sport. And it wasn't really ever about making a career. It was about our son wanting to do something to the best of his ability. And because he loves to win and he loves to compete, we will support him in his endeavor. And that is why I think we were successful as a unit, as we grew up through sport. But you mentioned school days and you mentioned shyness. And it's important, to say that one of the biggest reasons why I decided to swim well and pursue it seriously is because of my shyness, and because, in school there used to be the sports day, right? So very often I would be entering for the 100-meter or a 200-meter trial to be part of the final 16 boys who ran the 100 or the 200 on sports day. But invariably in those trials, I was last in all the trials I did. I'm talking about being 7 and 8 and 9. So as an athlete, or the definition of an athlete that young school kids had, which is how fast can you run 100 meters or how fast can you run across a football field, I was terrible. And that also contributed to my having very low self-confidence as a young kid. So deep down, I wanted to build something for myself where I could excel at. And honestly, nobody mentored me through that or gave me direction to say that it's not necessary that you have to be great at athletics. You can be great at other things, which is what we have today, mentors and psychologists who tell children this. Nobody did that for me. I remember sitting alone at lunch breaks, searching within for effort or energy to excel at swimming, and wanting to do it for myself so I wouldn't be low on self-confidence when on a sports day. And that started to convert for me very well, because within a year, I was the only kid in class or in school called up on sports day to get the highest sports award. Not because I wouldn't even enter in the 100-meter, obviously. It was because I excelled at a state level or a national level. So I was lucky that results also started to convert fast for me. And that only gave me more and more, confidence. So it's so important for children today to understand that, or parents also understand that, just because you've decided your child should be good at a particular thing, it doesn't mean he's going to be good at it. And you have to allow him, to grow, and allow him to find what he's passionate about more than what you feel he should be passionate about. I'm not a parent. I'm not a father yet. So it's I don't feel I should be preaching to parents, but I believe I'm 27 years old in sport. So this is what I can offer as advice.
Okay. Now, what is very interesting for me is you're talking about discipline. I mean, when it comes to kids ranging from 7 to, up to 13, It's a
Right.
very difficult phase for parents who are parenting that age group. How
Right.
does this discipline come into a small boy of that age? Like it is quite difficult, isn't it? So how
Correct.
did you build that? I mean, did your parents, condition you in that way, or like you picked
Yeah,
up that
yeah,
discipline?
definitely. I think there was a large part of my work ethic was because of my coaches and my parents also. You can call it pressure if you want to, but it was that where I was really pressured to perform at championships or in tournaments, but I was always pressured to work hard at my sport. And that was from my coaches and a lot from my, dad, where it on race day when I have so much pressure already on me from myself, there was never any from my parents.
Mhm.
But there was always this pressure that if you're taking the time out from your study day or from your entertainment or your social life to go to a swimming pool and spend 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, do it well and do it to the best of your ability. So if I messed up swim practices because I was careless or if I wasn't in a mood to work hard on that day, I got it from my parents. But I never was made to feel small or made to feel anger from them if I did not perform on race day or in a competition. And you mentioned from 9 to 13, I lost a lot of races. I wasn't at the top of my field. I mean, success is still relative. A bronze medal for me may be somebody else's gold.
Mhm.
But I knew the level at which I could compete and win at. So when I underperformed, it was never pressure from my parents or my coaches to say in a bad way or a negative way, but it was always if you're committing an X amount of time to sport or whatever your passion is, do it to the best of your ability. So that's where I feel it is important for parents to understand where to put pressure on a child and how to put pressure. So you teach the kid as a swimming coach today, and I mentor athletes. I teach them not to only excel in races, but to also excel in practices.
Mhm.
And when I say excel in practice, I don't mean win all the time in practice. I mean have develop a work ethic to excel in a competition. And there needs to be a push from your parents or from adults like coaches. But as you get to 12 and 13 and 14, it has to start coming more from you. So I would say 70% of how disciplined I was came from my desperate hunger to be the best.
Mhm.
And on my bad days or on days where I just wanted to be an 11-year-old child and have fun with my cousins and go on holidays, and I was not allowed to. And swimming practices didn't allow me to be on those family trips or with friends. On those days, I had parents and coaches to steer my ship and keep me on the right path because swimming is an extremely hard sport, and we don't get breaks really. We swim twice a day, and this starts at the age of 10
Mhm.
until the age of 27, which is when I retired. The longest break I had had, to put it into perspective for you, was 3 weeks.
Okay.
First of all, not no more than 3 weeks did a holiday ever last in 20 years of swimming. And that's how hard the sport is. Not too many people understand this or realize it until they hear it from an Olympian or a national champion.
Right.
So it's a big commitment if you choose swimming as a sport, but many kids seem to love it. So, and that's the foundation, I think, of everything I did. So that's the last part of my answer. I think you asked me, did the discipline come from you? I think discipline came from the fact that there were many aspects of the sport that I loved. And there were many aspects of the sport that I did not love and I actually hated.
Mhm.
But what set me apart, what set myself apart from my competitors was I had this ability, and I still do today, of learning to love those aspects as well.
Okay.
You cannot expect an 11-year-old to say no to his cousins when they call him out for a movie, and then 2 hours later go and enjoy swimming practice that absolutely cramps his muscles and exhausts him. Right?
Yeah.
It's difficult, but those are the situations which you have to learn as an athlete, as a young athlete, to thrive on, to learn from, and learn to love, because the value that comes in the form of a medal or
Mhm.
a trophy in 6 months is way more than the value of partying with your friends or your girlfriend or at movies. And if it's not, then sport is not for you.
Okay.
And that's also very important for a parent to understand, that if your child is not, I mean, there's only so much you can do in terms of pushing him and putting him on what you feel is the right track. But at the end of it, if the medal that he brings home or the trophy that he brings home does not give him the excitement or the happiness that spending time with family and friends does, then maybe sport isn't for that kid. And that's also okay. And that's where we go wrong. When you mention Indian families, it's not right to generalize or stereotype, but that's where a lot of families go wrong, where they feel that because they have a certain idea of how sport should be for their child and what it should make the child feel. If the child doesn't feel it, they force it on the child. I'm not saying everybody does it, but a lot of people do this. And what happens is the child ends up being very pressured to the age of 15 or 16. And the day they are old enough to be independent or make decisions for themselves, they hate the sport or they don't want to see the sport again. So I think there has to be a balance between parental pressure and coach pressure with something an energy that comes from within, from the athlete that wants to do it for himself.
Okay. Now, when it comes to parenting, we're just talking about Indian parents. I don't think there is any harm in saying that, because that is the reality. For ages it's been, even now younger parents who have just become parents also have a booking system for their schools. Before the kid is born, they book the schools. It's still the same
Correct.
thing. It's continuing from ages. So
Right.
there's another concept in parenting, which is toffee parenting, where they offer the child, if you do this, I will give you this. Like you have to win an award, I give you this. And there is
Right.
so much of competition between the parents. Now, if there are two kids and they are comparing their child, so if both of them are going to swimming classes, they pressurize them
Correct.
so much that at least you have to be better than the other child. So you
Yeah,
might have
understood.
witnessed that kind of parenting in your academy, wherever you are coaching them. So what do you have
Sure.
to tell such kind of parents? I mean, maybe they are talented to a certain extent. Don't you think they need to give time or anything? Could you please throw some light on that? How they
Okay,
can...
so I'm very lucky where my work doesn't limit me to just one swimming academy. I travel and work. So I mentor, I do consultancies for a number of academies around India. And then I do one-on-one sessions with swimmers as well. So I get to meet a vast spectrum of parents. And in my experience, what has happened is with swimming, and this is my core field, there are a lot of parents who do put a lot of pressure on their kids to in terms of comparison or pushing them to do better in tournaments. But I'm feeling more and more, and this is something positive I'd like to say, that parents are willing to understand and learn this better.
Okay.
It's not, there is an open mind, it's not a closed mind where somebody who is 10 years younger than them is advising them on how they should do what they need to for the best result for their child. They are very open to learning from me. And the message I give them, and you're right, I see it in a lot of people, that there is nothing wrong in being prepared. So when you are preparing better, so when you say their admissions are taken care of and they know what they're going to do in terms of sport, there is nothing wrong in that, as long as there is you don't go crazy. If you decide, if you feel that there is a good school that you want your child to go into, and if you have made necessary arrangements a year in advance, that's okay. If they've decided there is a sport that you want your kid to play, I would say fine, but give him 5 options. Don't decide on just one. So I feel that there is nothing wrong in being prepared or being too prepared also, because you're doing your kid a favor, because he can't do what you are, the groundwork that you are doing for him, he cannot do. But what happens is there are some parents who cross that line, and because of the amount of effort they have invested in the child's sport, they feel that, it's only natural that it gives them the right to overpower the kid and force their work ethic down the kid's throat, or pressure him to win more than he is physically capable of winning. And that happens because of so much involvement of parents in the kid's life. And the effort that they make, which is a huge effort. It's not easy to set your child's life up for the next 5 years when he's still 1 year old, right? But because of that effort, some parents, not a lot, don't know how to draw that line and say, okay, now I have done this for my kid, but now it's up to my kid to take it forward also. Which is where I mentioned that we were very good as a family unit, where they were my pillars of support. So they enabled me to be at swimming practice, but they didn't drive me insane and tell me that, listen, you're losing to this a particular kid every day in the pool. Because what happens is, it could also work. It's not that it doesn't work. I've raced with many swimmers who have grown up in that environment. But like I said, when they are 16 and then 18 and 21, when they look back on the sport, they don't love it. They leave the sport with a very negative outlook or approach of sport, because they have more bad experiences rather than good ones. So your trophy, your cabinet may be full of trophies, but you also have to have good memories from the sport. Whether you are 15 years old, 16 or 21, you want to look back and think of good memories also. So, and that comes from, yes, like you said, be as prepared as you need to, be the absolute support that you can be for your kids. But if you sense that your child doesn't want it, or is not enjoying constantly being told to beat the other kid in the pool or on the racetrack or wherever it is, then you have to, as a parent, also learn how to back off. And nobody's perfect. You asked me if I faced it. I faced it myself, where there were times where because of egos and competition involved, my parents may have wanted me to beat 3 other kids in the pool. And I was told that. But when I look back, they were not 30 and 35-year-old parents. They were also 1-year-old sports parents. So we were all growing as a unit, and we were all kids in sport. So as a process, over time, we learned to do it better. So at 8 years old, things that my dad may have said to me may have been sometimes overwhelming. But he, along with me, learned not say those things to me when I was 15 and 16 and closer to qualifying for the Olympics and winning those national championships, because he understood what is good for me to hear and what is not good for me to hear. So as much as it, and that can only come when I said a parent has to have an open mind to learn these things and not believe that they know it all. And the same for coaches, where if you are open to learning, you're always going to be helpful to the person you are training. So like I said, nobody's perfect. Parents, I've been very lucky that parents I work with because of their children, have always been receptive to understanding and listening to advice from me, because they know I've been through this whole cycle, that they are on still maybe year 3 or 4 of 20, if they choose to do it for 20 years. So it's like a fast forward for them. If they listen to me or people like me, it's a fast forward into the future to start doing things that we may have not done perfectly. So when we were young. And I'll end this answer by saying that there is no greater pressure you can put on your child by comparing him to another. And it is the advice is always teach your child to better himself, because he can only be the best he's going to be. No matter how much pressure you put on him, fine, it may work once or twice or thrice, but eventually, like I said, it's going to be bad memories for him as he grows up or she grows up. And secondly, eventually you're all going to realize that you could only control your own performance in practice or on race day. You cannot control what the person on the left or right is going to do, right? But if you make your whole preparation and practice and tournament about the boy or girl on the left or the right, then your focus is taken away from your job. And this is taught to a 9-year-old athlete, and this is taught to a 29-year-old athlete. Because even at 27, when I raced, I was still looking over my shoulder to see who's on either side of me. But again, in balance, where you use competitors to better your own self, but your overall effort of practice has to be to prioritize to first self-improvement and being the best you can be at your sport. So this is a message for athletes, young athletes, old athletes, and parents.
Okay, good. So what I wanted to know is, there is a mental model a 13-year-old should have, if they're dreaming to be like you or wants to bring in medals for the country. I just want to know, what are those things that these 13-year-olds or 11 or 12 years old start to build in themselves? How should they change from the normal other children who are not very focused on anything? Some of them are really happy go lucky, living their life as they want, but now they know that
Correct.
this is the goal and this is where they want to reach. What kind of a mental model should they develop over the period of time?